go ahead and start. Good evening and welcome to our regularly scheduled DDA meeting back in reality. This is so exciting. It took me a little while to figure out where City Hall was at. It's been a while since I've been here. But with that, we're super glad to be back and, shields down and reality back. So I don't want to jinx it, but I'm very excited. So at any rate, our regular scheduled meeting for Wednesday, March 16th. Madam Recording Secretary, the roll, please.
Chairman Giovanelli.
Present.
Mayor Vixen.
Here.
Paul Hay.
Here.
Marilyn Trent.
Here.
Roger Knapp.
Yes.
Bob Bloomingdale.
Here.
Tanya Karsten.
Here.
Lisa Germani Williams.
Here.
Tori Puma will be a little late.
He's walking in.
Oh.
He's back there.
Eric Diane and Chris Johnson are absent. Amanda Harrison.
Here.
Don Sinkowitz.
Here.
Christy Trevorrow.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. Eric is not here this evening because they had a baby. So, yes.
Well, congratulations.
So I got a picture a little bit ago. She looks awesome. I'll pass her on later. But anyway, so that's why Eric's not here. So he sends, between the two things, DDA board meeting or spending time with your brand new baby. That's a pretty easy choice to make. So I think we'll move on.
Here comes trouble.
I know, right? Totally. So we want to congratulate Eric and his wife on their newborn. Mom and baby are doing well. Dad's just going to have to get it together and help out. So, right. All right. Next thing on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from last meeting of February 26. And I believe, is it combined with goals and objectives?
There's
There's
two
two.
separate.
You don't do two separate votes or one together?
Separate.
However you want to do it.
All right, we'll put them both together. So the February meeting, we had our regular meeting, and then right afterwards was goals and objectives. So is there any questions with respect to the motions or to the minutes? And then there's a motion to approve in our favor.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 16th.
Motion by Trent,
I'll second it.
support by La Puma. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Excellent. All right, audience comments. So everybody that I see in the audience is either here to do work. That's basically it. So if there's anything else, we can come back to that later, but there's nobody here. So I just rely on our friends on TV tonight. Liaison reports. Ms. Harrison, welcome.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you finally join us live and in person. So we're glad to have you, and it's a great time. So we're super glad to have you as part of our team. So
Great. Well, I'm glad to be here. So thank you for welcoming me to the DDA. We had our last council meeting on Monday. And I will quickly just go through what we went over, and if you have questions, please let me know. And if I give you too much detail, let me know that as well. So we recognize Melissa Ford for receiving the 40 Under 40 award through Oakland County. And then we approved a whole host of events, including the Celtic Legacy Dance Performance, the Brooksy Way Spring 5K, Rock and Rods, Walk for Meals on Wheels, Movies in the Moonlight, Junk in the Trunk, Praise in the Park, and Deck Art. We reviewed the special events calendar and approved that. And we also approved a high-intensity drug trafficking area as well. Our biggest point of discussion that night was our draft for a wage and benefits report that GovHR did for us. It compared several communities and what those people are getting paid compared to the workers at City Hall to see if we're being competitive or not. So we're going to make some suggestions on how our compensations should be adjusted in order to be more in line with what the current standards are. Some of the communities that we were compared to included Berkeley and Ferndale, but there were, I believe, 11 in total that we looked at. And we received reports from many boards and commissions, including the City Beautiful Commission, the Facilities, Budget Planning Commission, and the Tree Committee. And we also passed a new residential lighting ordinance for a first reading and introduction. And that will basically, it's for residential homeowners to be careful about not lighting up too much their neighbor's house. We've had some complaints, so we revisited that topic to make some suggestions for shielded lighting in residential areas. Does that cover most everything? Are there any questions?
I don't think so.
Great.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for the recap. We appreciate it. That was always a hot potato when I was on council, so I'm glad you guys are dealing with it now. So nicely done. Okay, Chamber of Commerce, Marilyn Trent.
Not a lot to report, except that the Community Outlook Breakfast was a great success. I see a lot of familiar faces that were there, and I think Stuart Bixson needs to join SAG. I think you need to check into that. I think this is like, I don't know, the 5th year that you've not been compensated for your talent, and you
My
did a great
acting-
job.
We did a Peaky Blinders skit.
Oh, dear.
Yes, and if you missed it, I think it's
Blinders.
posted somewhere. I'm sure I can
I don't know
send
where
you.
it's posted, though. It's probably gone. But
It's,
YouTube actually yanked it, I think, right? So-
this is something we should hide, but anyway, that's it. That's it. They, and that's enough. I think the chamber did a good job. Not that I'm a little prejudiced, but
Right.
hey, I am. Hey, but I said at the DDA table, that's all I gotta say.
We appreciate certainly the chamber putting that on for the community. It's unfortunate for me as it happens during tax season, so I've, had other stuff cooking, but I'm glad, I heard it was fantastic. I did catch part of the skit, so it's good stuff.
Oh, that was the important part,
Yeah,
right?
right, so
You
it's
know.
good stuff. All right, thank you for that.
I think they bleeped him out for it was a new side.
Right.
Acting can really make you
Oh, dear,
a new person.
too funny.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, appreciate it. Historical Commission, Don Sinkowitz.
Just a reminder, this coming Sunday, the 20th, from 2 to 4 at the museum will be the Founder's Day celebration. There'll be entertainment provided, along with the book signing of the DUR book, along with goodies, so that's always worth going to. The Heritage Festival is in its planning stage for May 28th and 29th of this year. Also at the Rochester Hills Museum is an Antique Appraisal Day. That'll be on April 4th. Several of these activities are summarized in the Community Lifestyles this week, March 14th. And just to mention, there's been several preservation resolutions signed and approved for the school building, the Rochester Community School Building. So it seems to be getting a lot of attention, a lot of traction, and hopefully a good outcome that everybody's satisfied with, which will be a tough challenge.
Interesting.
Well, you know what they say about a good deal is when nobody wins, right? So-
I don't think so. But I
When
think
you-
that, no,
you know
that's.
you've reached a fair
that's-
deal when
that's the-
everybody's upset, right?
That's the opposite. Isn't it a win-win?
Good luck with that.
I should mention, in the Community Lifestyle, there's a great article written this week again about the school, some of the history of the school. The school building itself, I believe, is around 175 years old, and we start going back to where it originally started, so it's got quite a history there. And hopefully, like I said, the outcome is good for everybody.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. It's interesting, I think Rochester Avon Historical, their Facebook pages had a ton of really old pictures, and there was one with just like a bunch of people. I thought that was just super cool, so.
Yeah, there's people in it, I don't believe, I'm not sure, but I know there's people in the historical commission that started kindergarten there and all the way through high school.
Oh, dear. Jeez. Were you? Fantastic. That's great.
Wow.
Outstanding. Well, we have
Great, yeah. I was actually the first class they had there.
first class of high school?
No, first class of the school.
Oh, that's awesome.
1908 was that?
Oh, 1908, yeah, right. That's hilarious. Outstanding. Very good. All right, you had me there. I was like, all right, man. Very
Nice.
good. All right, Don, thanks for that. We appreciate it. Principal Shopping District, Mr. Haig.
Sure. Everything's going for 2022. That includes Farmers Market, Sidewalk Sales, Rochester Post, Lanyap, Kris Kringle Market, Caroling in the City, Festival of Trees, etc. What other new events do we have? Oh, Plaid Friday, Taste of Fall, and the Neighborhood Light Fight, which I'd like more neighborhood to get involved in, because it definitely did enhance all the lights too. So, and that's it.
Fantastic. Hard work always being done at the PST, so we appreciate that. Very good. On to the general business agenda. First up is Mr. Bry on our National Main Street Accreditation. Thank you, sir. Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. John Bry, Program Coordinator for Main Street, Oakland County. A little bit of preemptive commercials. So some of you will be at, like Ben said, our house tomorrow for the first ever Main Street, Oakland County Summit. We have not been together as a Main Street, Oakland County network in 2 years. So we have about 75 people from across the county that are planning to attend. Mayors, Community Economic Development Director, the downtown district managers. Executive Culture is kicking things off for us in the morning. Some of the county commissioners are attending. So this is your time that we really want to hear from the communities to speak truth to power, so to speak. And an opportunity to check in as the Main Street program goes for Oakland County. From your perspective of what's happening in your districts, your organizations, and what we need to do as a program and as a county to continue to support the districts and the organizations the best ways that we can. So it's an opportunity for you guys to tell that directly to the economic development leadership of the county and compare notes with your other neighbors and allies across the county that are also engaged in the program. Which, by the way, is now its highest number in its 22 history. We now have 27 districts representing 26 communities. If the math doesn't make sense, that's because Pontiac now has 2 districts with downtown and the Huron corridor coming in from the west. We also just received word the other day that Kego Harbor intends to return to the program as well. So before my time, they were involved, but they're looking to return. So that will take us to 28 districts in 27 communities, so we continue to grow. 2 other little commercials, just FYI for you all as a board. The technical visits that we provide the funding for that you used last year for your visioning session. Again, $10,000 available for you to apply in whatever way you would like towards the district or the organization. Hard deadline of June 1st to tell us what you would like to use that for, just because we have a lot of processing to do on our side and it can get messy. So hard deadline, absolutely need to know by June 1st what your intentions are. And the same with the In Your Town trainings that we started to offer a couple years ago. This one is intended to be more towards your business community, some type of workshop that you would like to do towards your businesses, maybe something that they would be interested in learning more about that will chip in up to $1,500 to help cover the costs of that. So those 2, we would like to know what your intentions are by June 1st. If we don't, you're out for the year. No nice way to say it. So deadline. So we gotta go.
I can assure you, we'll have ours in.
Okay, I know you will. So just want to remind you of those 2 things with the summit tomorrow. We're looking pretty much for a full house, which we're excited about, and the technical is the deadline of June 1st. So on to the accreditation. Congratulations for number 17, I believe, so good job. Just a couple things of note to keep in mind. One thing is, and we've talked about in the past since I've been on staff, is to encourage you to consider looking at historic district designation, National Register for the downtown district. I think in the past there was a thought that maybe there wasn't enough historic integrity in downtown Rochester to qualify, but having worked in the preservation field for a long time, I actually think there is. And there is funding available from the state that would actually pay for consultants to look at that and to even submit the nomination and application for you. It doesn't mean that folks can't change their buildings or things like that because you don't have that type of review in Rochester. But it would mean potentially tax credits could come into play that would be of interest to developers. There could be some additional grant funding that the DDA or the PSD could use in terms of promotion of historic resources. So it's actually another feather in your cap to tout, and quite a few of the other districts around the county are historic districts. Your neighbors to the north, Rochester and Oxford, are both historic districts in their downtown, with Oxford being the latest. They were designated a couple years ago. So just want to put that on your radar, something to think about in terms of, in the future, that's been mentioned about the historic preservation ethic that we look at in terms of the accreditation. But I know in the past the thought was maybe there wasn't enough here to work with for a district, but I think there is. But I would call in a consultant to kind of guide you through that process and confirm that. And if there is, to encourage you to pursue it. and there would be funding to help you do that. So that's one thing that relates to the accreditation as well. The other thing, and I'm glad you mentioned salary studies that you're looking at, because I think Christy is actually the longest serving now downtown director in Oakland County. Yay.
Great.
I think she does precede Joan and Clausen. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the longest one, and so I would encourage you to just kind of keep looking at that as you do your annual reviews with staff, and to make sure that you're staying in pace with other communities that are similar in size, and the budget to make sure you're able to retain effective and quality staff. So encouragement. No, she did not tell me to say that.
She didn't pay you. I know she didn't. I
No,
know
she
Christy
did
doesn't
not.
do that.
The other thing that I would point out to you, I mean, everything's going great, and I'm a big fan of giving communities flexibility in addressing some of their efforts for their downtown. And I would think two suggestions for you, just going on forward as the program continues to mature and age. Something we see popping up in other communities that are also more mature programs, not only in the county, but around the country. I would encourage you to think about, as a board, to continue to think about your public relations aspect to the community as a whole, especially in communities like Rochester that have a lot of people that are moving into the area and they don't know the history of your district or your organization and where it's come from and its accomplishments and such. So I think there's important to kind of develop a strategy around the ongoing communications and public relations to your community stakeholders, which is very broad, about what the DDA does, and more importantly, sometimes what it does not, and what you have achieved over the years. And that's where we want you to use things like the stats that you supply to us that we feed up to the National Main Street Center as a cumulative for the whole county. But to think about ways to do that message, because I think most people in Rochester would have a positive image of the organization and your work, but they may also get to think of you just as events and the promotional things. And those things are important, and it's part of it, but we were just in a conversation last week where someone had popped up and said, hey, I think we should dissolve the DDA because all you guys do is events. So they had to go on an offensive to educate and inform about that. So I think that's an important thing just to keep in mind in your planning and thinking about how you communicate the other things that you do and the impact that you have on the city and the district and the community, and use your numbers and your story to tell that. The second thing, I know you did the visioning last year with Ben, and I think there's an opportunity here that we're going to see some shifting in how the National Main Street Center is going to look at accreditation over the next 2 years, not tomorrow, but for us beginning, because we always look back on accreditation to the year prior. So for us, it will begin in 2024, looking back on 2023. So they've kind of come full circle. I've been doing Main Street long enough, that they're talking about, some of you may have heard the transformation strategies phrase that's been tossed around in Main Street circles. I'm old enough to remember when they called that ultimate work planning in the 1990s, so it's still the same concept. But the thing to remember, and this goes back to the public relations aspect, all the good work you're doing and the visioning process that you just went through with Ben, think about some way that you can at least frame what you're doing in one or two strategic concepts, strategic approaches that are economic. So just off the top of my head, in terms of looking at everything Rochester does, is Rochester positioning its district as a family-friendly type destination? By looking through the lens from the outside, from my perspective, of activities that the DDA takes on, or the PSD, that kind of pushes the directions of your goals and objectives, that keeps reaffirming and re-pushing that strategy. And so I think that's something to keep in mind here over the next couple of years, to kind of adjust your trajectory a little bit in terms of your work planning, to find what that is in terms of that strategy. And we can assist you and work with you on that if you want the fine tuning, but you're all very capable here, I think, of discerning that on your own as well. But I think that's going to be something that the National Main Street Center is going to really be looking at in the future of accreditation. So this is great, Rochester. You have ample budget, you have a staff, you've got great city collaboration, the district is thriving and vibrant, low vacancy rates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So why? What's the strategy that you're continuing to push and how does your work align around that? So that would be, I think, the biggest takeaway and recommendation from your accreditation is to think about that and find ways to frame that, because those are questions that we're potentially going to even get asked. So even if we do the accreditation in the future and we say, yep, Rochester's accredited, no, that's not even a word, accredited, Rochester's accredited, that we may actually get, feedback from national. Why? Show us the evidence that they're doing X, Y that does this. And I don't want to be in a position to say, well, we know they are. And they're going to say why. So particularly in your work plan efforts and things like that, and you have very capable staff that a lot of communities can't say that they have, but even reflecting that in the work plans and through your volunteers and your committees. And your committees, you've put a local spin on them, and that's perfectly fine. I encourage that. Do what works for you, as long as you're following the 4-point framework, and you are. But it's just framing that around that. So I think out of everything that we look at currently through accreditation in terms of the 10 points, and they're shrinking them and compacting them down to 6 points, but the 10 points are still reflected in those 6 points. But that's, I think, the biggest thing that I would want you guys to think about. And also in terms of all your leadership, and we've had this conversation in the past in Rochester, is succession, that you continue to draw into a great pool of leadership, whether that's for your board, for your staff, for your committees, that you continue to really excel in having an excellent organizational structure, because we know from best practices over the years that is really, really key. And that is one of the uber strengths of the Rochester DDA, is that you are a very strong organizational entity. And so I think it would be strategic on your part to keep thinking about, through your organization, how do you keep fostering and mining and training and enhancing this pipeline to make sure you continue to have this sort of seamless flow of strong organizational leadership for the DDA. Because sometimes that doesn't always happen in other communities, and it's like 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back, because there's this disconnect. So I think you're in a proactive position to be aware of that and be thinking about that before it starts to show up as a glitch that could then cascade and disrupt across your whole entity and your organization. So those are the comments in terms of the constructive suggestions. Everything else, I think, looks really great and doing a great job, and Rochester continues to excel. And I know you've heard me talk about this for a while, but you guys will be one of the pilots for the next gen that we're engaging with the National Main Street Center about downtown districts and organizations that have reached sort of this pinnacle of mature organizations. And I know Christy and I have talked about in the past of thinking, and I know folks on the board that we've talked about in the past, where do we go from here? Rochester is one of the communities that always wants to be a little bit ahead of the game compared to everyone else, and be on the cutting edge of what everyone else may not be thinking of that you are already thinking of. So we're hopeful that we're going to get into that, and some of the partners that the National Main Street is looking to bring into the conversation with you guys, such as future cities, organizations, and things like that, to be looking, where do we go from here, that gives you guys some feedback of how to thinking about being this progressive next generation type downtown organization and district. So we're ready to about roll. Got one more meeting on Friday. I want Matt Wagner to go through what we're looking at as for the process with Ingrid Ty, the Economic Development Director for the county, and just so she's aware, and then hopefully be reaching out to Christy and everyone and saying, okay, we're ready to roll this spring, and here's where we begin. And we'll come back and do a whole conversation with the entire board. So it'll be Rochester, Ferndale, both Great American Main Street Award winners from the county, as well as Farmington and Royal Oak. So you guys will be the class of the next generation, which will be the national pilot for the entire country. So we're excited to finally get that conversation off the dime. Anything else for me?
Is there any questions for Mr. Bry?
I do, Mr. Chair. Just a question of what are the pros and cons of being designated as a historic district?
Pros are, it's one, a badge of honor. At the low end of the spectrum, you get to say, we are historic downtown Rochester. It's something that you can use in your promotional type efforts that say we're officially designated. The pro would be that there would potentially be some grant funding available, particularly from state sources, maybe from the National Trust, that may be helpful on cultural type events or activities that you want to do. There may be grants that the city may apply for that could impact the downtown district. And sometimes on those grant applications, particularly ones from the state, sometimes it will ask, are you on the National Register of Historic Places? Yes or no. Sometimes when you get to check yes, that usually gives you a few extra points in the scoring system when they're reviewing grants. I personally have seen that and been on grant review panels where that was a priority. There could be grant possibilities that come up from particularly the state level that could be used for property renovations that are either owned by the city or a nonprofit, that again, the property has to be on the National Register either individually or as a district in order to even be considered eligible.
Okay.
You see that a lot out there. Rochester doesn't have what some of the other communities have in terms of Historic District Preservation Commission that does review in terms of design and things of that. So no one's gonna come in and say, you can't do that. The only time that is triggered is if federal funds are involved. Then there's what's known as a Section 106 review. But that can potentially even take place if a property or district is considered eligible for the National Register. That may have even happened when you guys did the big streetscape, that MDOT may have had to have the State Preservation Office review that the big streetscape on Main Street was not having a negative impact because they may have looked at it as that Rochester has historic resources in their downtown. Is this gonna have a negative or adverse impact? So that could be potentially in your favor because it doesn't mean that anyone can just come in and do whatever without at least a review if federal funds are involved. But that, again, that happens even if you're not on the National Register.
Okay.
So I really can't, and I don't think I'm biased in saying this, I can't think of a drawback. It's actually another tool that you can use. And now Michigan is in the process of bringing back the state historic tax credit. And there's already the federal historic tax credit. So if you have a property owner downtown that their building is considered what's known as a contributing building in the historic district, and they're taking on a significant rehab of that building, they can potentially get upwards of 40% in tax credits, both federal or state, once the state finishes figuring out how they're gonna do theirs, towards offsetting the cost of the renovation. So that's a plus, but as a baseline, the building has to be on the National Register, either and it has to be income producing. So, that's a starting point. So, Marilyn, you follow some of the stuff that I've been involved with in
Yep,
Ohio.
I have,
And you
yep.
just saw the big historic hotel
that's
that just
part of it.
opened, and that was a tax credit project.
Okay.
And we just renovated 2 schools as part of that project in Ohio. And we scrambled and put them on the National Register with the school district's blessing because the developers who did the hotel did the schools, and they wanted them on the National Register because they were able to take advantage of the federal historic tax credit, and Ohio already has a state historic tax credit, so that was huge for them.
Oh,
And they were
great.
able to do that because the buildings were on the National Register, and in their cases, they were being turned into housing.
Okay, just one last question. When you talked about family-friendly, and you were giving us the heads up to take a look at that.
Now, that's just one.
Well, I understand.
Yeah.
I take all alerts, green, orange, or otherwise.
Yep.
Seriously. So on the family-friendly, is there any benchmarks that we could take a look at as a board to see what that is? Because we do have a lot of new, younger residents that come into town, and they've asked me about family-friendly things and being in Rochester, and I was curious when you brought that up.
Well, that would really come back to you guys, how you interpret that and see that.
Okay.
So with the visioning process that you just went through with Ben, with the community input that you take, and then also looking at data in terms of market data for Rochester, you look at how all those things overlap and see where the happy middle ground is in the opportunity. And then you take your committees and you think about your projects, your events, your activities, and think about what can we do that we're already doing that reinforces this or enhances this? What do we maybe take off our plate that isn't enforcing this? Or what do we need to add that does? So that was just an example, but.
Yeah, that's good. No,
Yeah,
I just,
but it
this
really,
was
it would
just
depend
trying
on
to.
you. And no matter what you feel like your strategy strengths may be, one or two of them, what that looks like in terms of implementation comes back to this group to
Okay,
sift through the information and make that decision. What does that look like?
well,
Does that make
thank you.
sense?
No, it does, and it's an excellent presentation. I want to thank you for doing this.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Bry?
I'll make a.
Please, yeah. No, that's fine. Don, go ahead, please.
Mayor, I'll direct it at you. Any of the information that was just discussed about funding for historical buildings, would or could any of that apply to the school building?
It's interesting,
Potato, hot potato.
that's what everybody's thinking. My only comment was, I think that the bids are gonna be due like next week. So I don't know if it's too late, or if that's something to think about.
Can that be extended?
Well, again, that's the school board, that's not us.
Right.
So are you speaking of, excuse me, Mr. Chair, are you speaking of that historical designation? Is it not historical? Is it?
I believe the Harrison building has a historical designation too, but the rest of it, the rest of the building.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's kind of married, isn't it, to each other?
It was added on so you could always take it off.
Right, but I mean, you got part of it that's a historical. I mean, that could have a conversation, I guess.
Right. So I think on balance with respect to that particular issue, people that are, obviously, we have no control
Yeah,
over
I
it or saying
understand,
it. So
but-
I don't want to, us to go down the
Sure.
old rabbit hole. But, I suspect that folks that, everybody's taking a different look at that at 8,000 different angles. So if it was available or viable for anybody that was going to, it would probably already be in play. As John pointed out, in Ohio, they have a state tax credit that Michigan doesn't have yet. They're bringing it back. So that may or may not. But once again, I would sort of defer to that.
And I would just say, anything has to come before the planning commission.
Right.
And the city council. Any developer, they know that. That was what the whole kerfuffle we had a few meetings ago was about. So, yeah, and actually speaking about that, I mean, one of the issues with the historical designation was we didn't want to mandate that people had to do that.
Yeah.
So that's always been a
We debated that.
problem with that, if that's the word.
And it doesn't.
Huh?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, buildings have been destroyed that are on the National Register because they weren't using any federal funding to trigger any type of review or altered. So being on the National Register, unless there's any type of local review, it does not mandate.
So as long as it's,
That's a myth that just won't die.
Well, thank you. That's the question. We're trying to solve a few
well,
problems.
but we had buildings that we wanted to put on there, and those builders did not, the owners did not want that designation, because then they can't make some kind of repairs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think what John's talking about was the federal versus
Right.
this. So, I mean, excuse me, from my perspective, it feels like anytime we can get free credits and do stuff, we're going to investigate that and see how it works. Sure. I do know, as the mayor said, and in my days on council, we debated this heavily, and it was a big issue. And to the mayor's point, we just couldn't make the two issues box because of the pushback from the property owners. So, but if there's ways we can get around that, we absolutely want to investigate that and look
Yeah,
at that.
I mean, in talking about the downtown, the main downtown
Sure.
here, it's something you want to explore, get the facts.
Yeah.
And we can put you in touch with folks that work with this every single day.
Sure.
And have had these same type of conversations with communities that are trying to understand what it means and more importantly, what it doesn't mean.
Sure, yeah.
So if you ever want to have those conversations, we can.
Yeah, I think for us, we would, it feels like it would be sort of some legwork on our behalf to do some investigation and then get with our partners at city council and say, hey, look, this is what we found, what do you guys think? And then if it's got legs, we'll go from there. But to the mayor's point, we've got a lot of interested boards and commissions that need to all sort of be aligned. Because once we start talking about it, then all of a sudden people assume the exact opposite, right? So it's just, we
And
need to
not-
make sure that we message that
Not to
properly.
muddy the waters, but I only, again, bring it up from the downtown.
Yeah, sure,
perspective
understood.
And the preservation ethic piece that we look at from the.
But these guys still got to say it's okay, so we
Okay,
just got to
so
make sure.
I'm going to interrupt here for a second, because we did a lot of studies on this, contiguous and non-contiguous. And so we can have a non-contiguous historic district. It doesn't have to be, you could have a building here and a building there and a
Right,
building here and a building there. And you can choose whether you want to put yourself on the historic district or not. So I couldn't see the negative myself.
Wasn't that for local, though? A local historic district?
Could be local.
I'm pretty sure that was local.
Yeah, it was
He's
local.
talking about federal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like I said, we'll take that under advisement, otherwise this meeting will be here till like 4 o'clock in the morning talking
Sorry.
about this, but, yeah, no worries.
That's important.
So, first of all, John, I want to thank you. Of course, we really value our partnership with the, with the county and the work that you guys do, and we couldn't do it without you. So, once again, thanks for coming and providing, your take. I will say that prior to COVID, we were on an active push led by Christie to engage outside sort of that, the community at large, right? And that was a core focus of Front Porch and the, the square project we were doing. And then COVID came and ripped out the sheet from underneath us like everybody else. So I think, we're almost on bleeding edge on that, having the DDA sort of, and we brought up the neighborhood light fight. That's not DDA, that's just us trying to promote, community spirit, in town. So you're spot on, we're on it, and we'll continue to be on it.
All right, John, I still have one more. Can you have a non-contiguous
Oh, dear.
national district? Yes?
That one I don't know.
I'd like to know.
All right, make a note, and we will circle
We're not
back on
going
that
to know,
one.
that was 5 seconds. Then we
All
gotta-
right, no, well, I know, they always start off that way, Paul, but they never end that way, so.
Should not have brought that up.
No, it's all good, we appreciate that.
Are you going to be able to control this meeting?
And then, also too, with respect to the visiting session, so we just had our last meeting, which the minutes we just approved was our goals and objectives, and we addressed not only the compensation study, which was part of that, but also as part of our budgeting, but also too brought back the elements of the visioning session to incorporate into our budget, sort of our 5-year plan. So the things that you said we are doing, and they'll become more transparent, I guess, as the year progresses. But it's just sort of, from my perspective, validation that we're doing the right thing, so.
Right, and my point with bringing all these things up tonight is to give you, I know you guys are moving in that direction, is to give you kind of a runway to keep thinking about it.
Right, yeah, right.
Because as we know, in Main Street time, it goes by very
Oh,
quickly.
100%, yeah.
And as they kind of shift this focus around their accreditation, it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah,
So I just
total.
want to make sure you guys are adequately prepared.
Yeah, for sure. And then, it's an honor to be among the rarefied air with the top downtowns, in the county to kind of go to the next level. So that's super exciting for us, and we're really looking forward to that, and to be a big part in trying to help get that over the curb. So we'll see you tomorrow.
All right?
All right, sounds
See you
good. You got green beer and
Oh, my gosh, they're Penny Black
Cupcakes, that's
is
all.
our,
all right, yeah, no, all right. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
man.
You
Thank
bet.
you, everyone.
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll see
thank you.
tomorrow.
Thanks, John.
All right, thank you for that. Moving onward, what do we got? Oh, me. All right, so DDA budget, draft budget. So in your packet was the recap of the draft budget. So we got together on March 3rd at Meeting House. Chris was gracious to open up the joint at 9 a.m. and we sat around the big table and kind of threw the ideas up. One of the things that was talked about was the wage study, which I don't know, how long's it been, 5-6 years since we had one done here? They generally are. 7? Oh, okay, so it had been a while. So anyway, we talked about that, we sort of incorporated that in part of it, but on balance, the budget sort of before you, I wanted to kind of level set, just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, and I know, people probably do know this or not know it, but I just wanted to kind of take a walk down memory lane to where we're at today. So prior to COVID, as I talked about, we were, marching forward with our, Front Porch project, which in effect was going to be a sort of a quasi town square type thing. And we had been socking away money for that particular project for several years, and then COVID came. So in 2020, the DDA shifted gears. We had to support, all of the current emergency stuff that was going on. So We sent about $840,000 over to the parking fund. So taking the money that we had set aside to do that project, we sent about $840 over to the parking fund to handle the debt service for that year. We also picked up the principal shopping district assessment for 2020. We provided the platforms, which are the restaurants took advantage of to try and help them out to, as folks wanted to dine outside and not, and whatnot. Another $113,000 in COVID support functions, and then we also transferred another $112,000 over to the parking fund last year for meters. So in parking, we had just under $1 million transferred from the DDA to parking, 952,217 by Anthony's math. And then another, like I said, 321 in PSD, the platforms and others. So all in, we had about a little over $1.5 million, $1,534,465 to be exact, that was taken from DDA, the money that we had been socking away in fund balance to accomplish this project that had been gone to COVID. So that forced us to kind of drain the swamp, as it were, and sort of start over. So as we sat through the budget process, it was going through and trying to figure out, all right, so we've, done all these things, and we spent all the money we've been saving. We want to get back on track for that. So our initiative was to continue to put money away for that. In your packet was the actual budget itself. Revenues are basically a push year over year, according to Anthony, so we won't know totally until, as we get closer. But that was that. With respect to the overhead, the administrative part, really the only thing that we addressed was we had to deal with the two other staffers that were underpaid according to what their where they lied within the pricing study or the salary study. So we adjusted them upward salary-wise, and basically just took what was a suggestion from the city manager as to what, sort of the conventional thinking of the 2% plus, trying to keep people sort of engaged. And as an aside, I think everybody to a person knows that it's an incredibly competitive salary climate right now. One of the companies that I'm a partner in is a staffing company, and I can assure you that it's super, everybody's, the amount of money that people are paying for things that even 2 years ago, it blows my mind. But that's unfortunately the world that we live in today. So, but that said, I think on balance, it's a 5.95% increase year over year in the total sort of administrative and overhead of the DDA. So to my mind, with inflation at 8%, we're less than inflation, so that actually worked out pretty well. But we're going to continue to put $250 away for streetlights. We left a little bit of money in for sidewalks, but Nick had told us that we were basically done on sidewalks, so it's now sort of a maintenance upkeep issue, which is great. Last year, we transferred $441 over to the city streets fund for our part of the capital projects. And then this year, so that money's already set aside. It'll be spent in the budget coming up, but it's already set aside in fund balance. So that money's already been, air quote, paid for, which is fine. So with that, the budget, in effect, ends up being all of the money left over from Big Bright Line. We're going to continue to fund everything we did before. The only thing that we removed from the budget is we had been paying $50,000 a year to the parking fund for a while. But with us putting $1 million into parking over the course of the last year and a half, and the fact that parking got about $700,000 from the COVID money from the federal government, we figured, all right, well, let's take that 50 and kind of use that to try and get our fund balance back up to get back on track for Front Porch. So that was the only major, or not even major, just the only sort of change year over year. So we took that out for the next 3 years budget, and every year stands on its own. But that will be probably the main thing that will be different as it's presented to council. When are we going before council?
The 28th.
28th, okay. So we'll do our usual walkthrough presentation at that point in time. But the meeting was, it's easy. The budget meetings go quick when you don't have a lot of money to spend on stuff. So we did set aside $10,000 for art. which was great. So we made some strategic investments, but based on our goals and objectives meeting, everybody pretty much to a person wanted to just get back on track, saving money for the front porch project, of which we have a subcommittee that's working on things. I instructed them or reminded them that we have to have a plan for the money. You just can't save the money. That's being refined, and there's a couple different things floating around right now. So we will update that and be presenting that or updating the board next month, month after. I don't know.
So they're gonna
Soon.
have another-
Hopefully.
What's that?
They're going to have another meeting.
We haven't met since you told me you wanted to be on the committee, so you haven't missed anything.
Oh, yeah, no, right, yeah, so after the next meeting, and we'll get that updated, then come back before DDA, get the board up to date, update it here, and then I want to do the same. It's important that we keep council up to date as to, sort of what's going on in our world, and so there's no, so everybody has a chance to chime in and express their position, so. Long and short of it is that the budget sort of is what it is. Any extra monies that we have for capital are going to be set aside for the, whatever the next iteration of Front Porch 2.0 looks like. But that's kind of where we landed. So with that, any questions from the board with respect to the budget?
So the $50,000 the DDA is consistently given to the city is not going to be given to the city?
No, well, we gave $1 million last year. We pulled that all forward, and then the thought was, we did that, and then the second thing is that the parking fund just got $700,000 from the federal government, and Anthony said it was in good shape now. So my position or our position was, let's take that 50 and use that to continue to try and build back up and take some of our $1 million back that we paid out. So.
Okay, we'll see how that goes.
All right, well, of course we will, as it always goes, right? Any other questions?
Just to clarify, so 100% is going, everything is going.
Except for
toward-
the small investments in the art, but yes, everything is going to be socked away to try and build the fund balance back up.
And how much is that each
The,
this
I
year?
mean, towards the town square, right?
That's correct.
100% goes, but
That's
is there
correct.
anything for site development or
Well,
anything
yeah,
else for the
site,
side
the usual site budget is in there,
At
yes.
250?
Yeah, yes.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And how much is going to, how much do we save for the front porch project this year?
According to Anthony, the surplus at the end would be adding was going to be 418,068. That's the remaining budget that's unallocated that's going to capital. So in effect, it's going to take us, if we do this for the next 4 years, it'll take us 4 years to get back to where we were before we spent all the money on COVID at this cadence.
Just a question, so it's not like 5%, 10%, everything, 100%?
Yeah, not what's in site, right? Site still has 250, so if there's projects there as they come up, that would go to site.
Okay.
To the extent that that's not spent, then that'll make that,
So the 250 could go to the town square
It
as
could.
well? Okay.
yeah.
So who makes that decision?
Well, the site committee would make recommendations, and this board would vote on those recommendations, and and then we would send it to council, and if they get their blessing, then that's where it goes. If not, then it just sort of sits, so. It has to get past the guardians of the gate, so,
Okay, thanks.
you bet. Anybody else? So at this meeting, do we have to formally adopt it, or is it going to go to council and then go through because the meeting that we're going to, is that a budget session, or is that a regular council meeting?
It's a regular council meeting. Typically, at this meeting, we just present it. And
Yes.
then we'll bring it back here
Okay,
in
that's what-
April
that's
with
my
comment
question
from
was.
council. If we need to make any adjustments, or at that
That-
point, we would go ahead and bless it to recommend it to
Got
council.
it, okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm there was no action needed tonight on the budget. So it's
No.
informational. If there's any questions that, you don't have now but want to get answered, either to myself or Christie, and then we'll certainly get you the detail that you need or try and get the answers. We all got all these numbers from Anthony, so it's between the administration and the budget subcommittee, I think we'll be able to get you what you need, so. Good? Anybody
As
else?
good as I
Going
can
once?
get for now.
Okay. All right,
I'll
well,
email you later.
excellent. I know you will. You always do. I appreciate
No,
it.
I know, not very rarely, but I will now.
Very good. 4th Street Reconstruction Project, Mr. Banda.
Congratulations, the DDA is going to be the kickoff of the
2022 construction season for Rochester. It starts next Monday, actually. So if you've been following around town lately, you've seen the city doing total street reconstruction. We've done a lot of sewer prep, mostly sanitary. So we have two giant funds that we got loans with from the state, the Drinking Water Revolving Fund and the Sanitary Relief Fund. So it's revolving fund, I'm sorry. So you put those two projects together when you have an issue on a long stretch, if you will. So last year we completed replacing the transmission main all the way in Rochester Hills to here. It was over 100 years old. So that got done. We did Oak Street through here. Part of it was the DDA. We did Wilcox Street, got that done. We did Mahaffey. So this year, it was a 3-year project that we're gonna do, and our DePonio Construction is our partner, and they've been very good. And they asked to try to compress this 3-year schedule into 2 if possible to save the cost. Obviously, if they buy stuff now, it doesn't cost what it did a year and a half ago. It will not cost the same a year from now. So we've been working with them trying to speed up the process. So the next 2 projects are Helen Street from University to First, and then 4th Street from the terminus and Main, where when we redid Main Street, there's concrete pads. From there, about 100 feet from the intersection, all the way to Wilcox, has to be done. So 2 blocks of that is in the DDA. The chairman talked about money that was set aside already for this project, so it's not a new ask of the DDA. What's gonna happen that does affect the DDA, we had a meeting last night, Christie was there, with the people that are affected on 4th Street, including the DDA, so, the DDA portion. So what's gonna happen in the first 2 blocks from Main Street to to Pine, is simply, there's a water main that gets ripped out. It's just off of the north edge of the curb, so it's in the road. So we just put in new sidewalks that we were done with, new curbs, so we're gonna save those. In most of the rest of the projects, we have to rip out everything, sidewalks, curbs, storm sewers, sanitary, gas, do everything. The first 2 blocks, we don't have to do that, so that's good. So they're gonna be able to come in here and we asked them to get at that quickly so it doesn't affect any of the events that are gonna take place early in the summer. So we had a meeting with the contractor last Friday, I think, and he gave us even better news that he thinks he can get this whole first phase of this project done by the beginning of July, not just our 2 blocks. So he's gonna start here, cut the road, put a new water main, get that charged, then abandon the old water main, rip that out. That just stays within the curbs from, again, Main Street to Pine. The intersection at Pine has got 4 catch basin situations and a whole bunch of utilities, so we want him out of that to the west so that we can keep Walnut open for the parking structure and flowing downtown. Then he'll spend the next couple of months from Pine up to Wilcox to get that done. So the residents went through the pain on Oak Street. It's painful, because they have to rip everything out and start over. So your money's set aside. We're focusing to get this segment done first, and should have minimal impact then. We've talked to the business owners. Nobody's excited about it. We won't put the platforms down until the road's paved. So it's like, get this paved and then get out of here, and then work your magic the rest of the way. So we've been working with Mr. Thibodeau at the Village Shoe-In. I think he's gonna let us stage some of the materials there, which will really help movements through town, because they've had to stage down at the water treatment plant. And then you've got forklifts ripping through town. They've been having to stack all the pipe on the streets right in front of people's houses. We're gonna be able to use his parking lot for a bit to stage, which will really help a lot. Keep the confusion and the congestion down as we go. So today they delivered the barricades. They literally want to start on Monday. So we're good with that. The residents, we have a website that the residents can access. We have weekly meetings, weekly updates, daily updates on the website that says, we're in this stretch and this is what we're doing today. So we did it on Ludlow. We've done it on Wilcox. The last 2 years have been, 3 years really, have really been good communication. The city's doing everything they can to keep people as calm and unaffected as possible. It's even down to, hey, I'm moving today and my road's dirt. We'll make sure they can get to their house. I mean, we've been very accommodating. This, especially this contractor's been really, really good. So, so that's it.
Can Can I add, just to add on to that, just from the business perspective? So for deliveries, because the alleys are one-way, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So what Deponio has said they will do is that they're going to mill 4th Street right there. They're going to leave that open to local traffic. So the alley will not be closed except for when they have to cross over the water main, which will be for just a few days. And they told us that they'll let us know well in advance so we can let the businesses know, so they can let their deliveries know that they won't be able to cross there. And then we would be able to organize some things, whether they need to stage on Walnut, depending on their location, or if we want to stage some spaces on Main Street, so they'll be able to still receive their deliveries. In addition to that, in terms of events, we are relocating the Thursday night market because that takes place every Thursday in June, and they will not be out of there by then. But we've put as the benchmark for them that their drop dead has to be July 14th, which is sidewalk sales, because then Dancing in the Street is the next evening. So they know that, and they're working with us on that. As I've gotten myself added now to the weekly bulletins, we'll be putting together over the same little bulletin that we do is tailored to downtown specifically, because the bulletin I get has everything in it. We'll be sending that out to all the merchants, not just the 4th Street merchants, to make sure they're aware of what's coming for the next week. And then if we have any other issues to pop up, we can get that out on the e-blast pretty quickly or in the merchant Facebook group to let people know what's going on. So we'll be on top of communication as best as we can.
And just one other thing, if you don't freak out if you saw the roads blocked on North and South Main lately with a lot of MDOT trucks, and they are surveying for the next project, which isn't until 24 at the earliest, maybe 25. That is going from Bridge to Tinkin and Bridge to Avon. Even though they just surfaced Avon, that's all got to get ripped out, just like Main Street. So that's not until 24 at least. So we'll have a wicked communication plan on that. So try to minimize that effect, because it's probably going to be a one-laner this time instead of like we did last time, just shut everything down. But all the planners are working on that. Now they're doing the surveying, so if you see people out there, it's not imminent. It's not for a couple of years yet.
Got it. Any other, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Don.
They already replaced the water mains on Wilcox and 4th.
Correct.
So they will have to rip that intersection.
No, right, that intersection, no, it stops right at that pavement, correct. Tie into that one.
And when are they gonna do Helen?
Probably starting in July. Yeah, we're gonna get that out in front of everybody. We'll see how this one goes. And then they know, they're trying to dodge in between schools, because we have 2 schools there in the school year. They'll interrupt the schools for 1 month, probably either way, if they started early or late. But they're gonna do that one second.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Nick? So on the platforms, it's just the platforms on 4th Street, we're not delaying or all of that? All right, wait, I'm not done with you yet. On the alleys one-way, is it going to be easier or can we ask to have the one-way taken down, or?
I don't know that it would matter, because you still have to access it from 4th Street either way, because, and like, we're talking, what we're most concerned about are the big delivery trucks
Yeah.
going food service. They're not backing up anyway.
gotcha.
So,
There's no way out of that
yeah,
block.
they can still go. It's just we're trying to communicate to them that it's going to be an active construction scene, so that there may, when we are at the time that they can't cross it, we'll be giving advance notification, but it'll always be gravel. And they said after they're done with their working hours, they'll open it up for local traffic only.
Got it. I just didn't know if it was worth to have a conversation with Chief on it to see if.
Yeah, no, he was part of it. Yep.
Okay, all right, very
Yeah.
good. And then lastly, are you going to be with us next month?
Yes.
Okay, never mind. I'll wait then. All right, very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Outdoor dining platform update, just like that. We're right into the next thing.
Thank you for the segue. So, per the board's request, I reached out to all of the businesses that took advantage of the platform program in the past 2 years. They all very enthusiastically agreed that they would like to have their platforms back again this year, with the exception of Beyond Juice, which closed their doors at the end of January, which I think I mentioned at our goals and objectives meeting. Now with this little wrinkle of 4th Street and when it's starting, because at the time we weren't sure when it was going to start, we're going to have to back out some of the numbers here, just because we won't be able to place Zoot's platform, and DeMarco says 2 platforms. So we'll back those numbers out. But I worked with the chief because we had to accommodate the cost, because we're now at $1.25 per hour rather than just the $1. So last year, just as a recap, for the May through October dining season, including these restaurants plus Beyond Juice and the parklet that we have on Walnut, the DDA was asked to pay the city $19,148. With planning that we're going to do all the things except for Beyond Juice, and this is without taking out for a few months Zoot and DeMarco's, the 22 season is around 23,680, and then I'll back out those other two. That would be, if the city would ask us to pay, that would be the amount requested. And that's from Chief Schettenhelm.
Got it. Very good. Any questions? Mr. Lepool?
I hate to keep on going over this, but we partnered with the city to, we paid the parking fund for 2 years. We have $1.3 million. I just can't understand. We're partners, remember? I can't understand why we're paying $30,000 when we really, realistically, parking places are $1,000 a place. We bought roughly 1,300. I thought it was $1.3 million we had into the parking fund, but we own 1,300 parking places. So why are we paying this $20,000? I really don't understand. If we're partners, we're partners, you know? It bothers me.
Valid point. And crickets.
Fair is fair.
Fair is fair. I don't know, we appreciate that point, and there's others that feel the same way, but I digress.
Who do we go in front of that, question this? To
So-
its council?
So with what we have here, because we do need to get this in front of council regardless of the payment, but to get the, okay, to place the platforms, we'd like to get this to council as soon as possible. So it does need to go to council with our request, and then I do have to provide this number because that's what we've done. And then it would be council that would have that discussion of payment or placement and then payment.
I think the cadence ends up being, then the mayor and city manager decide when it's gonna go on the agenda, so to go talk about it when it's on the agenda, you would just need to go to that meeting.
Because the community, they're the ones who really benefit from this. The people use them and they enjoy them. Especially during COVID, they really enjoyed them.
It creates a heck of a lot of
Heck, yeah.
walking downtown.
Well, it would be a discussion point with council, and, you know,
I hate to
It's not
double
fit
pay
to-
for something.
well, so do you need us to make a motion to forward that to council and get
That's-
it on the agenda?
That's where I was gonna go, is that
Okay.
I need a motion, and I would need to know if we are providing the number, if we're providing that they have a concern about the number, or if we're just providing this and here's the number.
I will make a motion that we provide the numbers and express our concern about the number, and go towards not paying that.
The money's important to us now.
Well, we got a motion, we need a support before we can discuss.
I'll second.
All right, beautiful.
Motion, all right, you
Confused
got
about
that?
the motion.
All right, very good.
Well, excuse me, I'm
Yes, ma'am.
confused
Discussion.
about the motion. It seems like it's bundled with like 2 or 3 things, like, you know what I mean?
Can somebody restate the motion?
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like there's some
So-
disgruntlement about one part and then there's
So
no-
the motion was that we are forwarding the proposal to council to place the outdoor platforms and the cost to do that with the request that they reconsider charging the DDA that cost.
It's clear.
Then they'll debate it, and it's either gonna be yes or no, so it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, just
Not
want
that
to
hard.
clarify.
Yeah.
Just want to make it simple,
All right,
right?
very good.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, no, I know the feeling. All right, so is everybody clear? All right, very good. There's a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Madam Director, on this particular?
No.
item? Okay, very good. Since you're on a roll, 7A, Executive Director update.
Sure, I just had one thing that's not included there regarding the Acorn Light Pole. So I had reached out to our contractors that work on that with us, because with materials increasing, I need to make sure that our numbers were correct for the 250 that we had set aside. And what I had discerned from that conversation is that ProTech, who supplies our lights to us, they said they are seeing some increases coming. However, they are willing to hold our pricing.
Oh, good, okay.
If we get them a purchase order in short order, that they will not bill us until the new budget year, but that we would do that. And then Dan's Excavating is also willing to hold our pricing as well.
Great, yeah, I think that's great. So, if you need any direction from us to do that.
If I could, just so I
Yes.
have it on paper, that'd be great.
A formal motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the request is, and I can't make motions as chair, so somebody else is going to have to do this, but the request is to have the director enter into a purchase agreement with the supplier for the Acorn lights to be committed for the next fiscal year.
Correct.
Starting July 1.
Correct.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all right, motion and it is supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Very good.
And just as a background on that, they said the sooner we get in the order, the better, because they think it's going to be anywhere from 18 to 24 where we
Oh, yeah.
actually see them. So
Yeah, they're all sitting in Long Beach Harbor right now.
they're somewhere.
Exactly.
So, yes.
Very good. All right. Anything else, update from you besides that we haven't covered? No? Okay, very good. Events and marketing update?
Yep, so in the packet that you saw, you guys are getting a sneak peek. We did our Mod magazine cover contest, and this is the winning design, is on Taylor's report.
And who did that?
This is an artist by the name of Tim Gralewski. He is actually one of our artists from the Magical Mural Tour. He's done 2 different murals for us. He won the Judge's Choice the first year. So, great artist for us. We were very excited. We had so many great submissions, so it was really hard to choose. So we were really excited that people got behind that. So the magazine is actually going on press next week, so it'll be in homes the week, or the middle of, middle of April. Deck Art registration is going along great. We're getting tons of people signing up for that. That's coming up in May. And then Farmers Market, it's a flurry of Farmers Market calls pretty much every day. And that's getting ready to open on the first Saturday in May. So we are just rolling right along.
Very exciting.
Yes.
Anything else for the director on events and marketing? Financial report for the DDAs in your packet. Any questions with respect to that? And if none at the moment, please feel free to forward them along for further detail. BizDev.
BizDev's first opening and closings, and I would have you do that if you could, Nick. Okay.
I did that a couple of weeks ago, maybe we don't have to go into that detail.
Yeah, I mean, unless nothing happened materially since then, so yeah.
Yeah,
we're good.
no, okay. What we discussed today was the annual business development meeting, and we came up with 2 possible dates. We're checking with the Royal Park as to what date might work. And as to the program, well, we definitely have the program under control. The featured speaker, we have not decided that yet. That'll be TBD, okay? And the holiday expo update, again, the chamber has told us they're going to participate with us, which is great, because that really did add to the holiday expo. And we don't have dates for that yet either. And miscellaneous, the entrepreneurial program, is that going to be under BizDev?
It is going to be under BizDev.
And do you have any update on that?
I do not. As I said this morning, we haven't started working on that yet, so we'll get there.
So sneak peek.
We are.
Stay tuned, news at 11, right?
Yes. Back to the Holiday Expo, that will be in November. We haven't been able to hold it for the last 2 years.
Yes.
First year because of COVID, second year because of all the backlog of people that had booked things at the hotel that they had to pull forward. We couldn't get a space.
Got it.
So, yes, so we should be good to go for this year.
All right, very good. Any questions for the Business Development Committee? Seeing none, site development.
Nothing really has changed from last month, so really not much to talk about.
Okay, very good. Onward and upward, as they say. All right, that concludes our regular agenda. Any miscellaneous from anybody on the board? No?
I got one
I'm sorry.
comment. I was just going to say that we're in the process of interviewing for Nick's position.
Excellent.
I think we're having final interviews on Friday, and then the top candidate or candidates are going to meet on Saturday, probably with Blaine and I, and then there'll be a decision, which the city manager will be making the decision.
Got it. Yeah. Moving right along. Well, that was why I asked if Nick was
Yeah.
going to be here one more time, so.
Yeah, Nick's not going anywhere quite yet.
Yeah, no, we'll keep him captive.
I-
He's the
Just-
gift that keeps
I
giving,
mean, he lives on Castell. I mean, can't get too far, right?
right? 100%. All right, very good.
We know
Any-
where you live.
We'll roadblock you.
That mailbox
Game
really
plan with that thing already.
All right,
really
the
is
microchips in his
points you
thigh.
as a red flag.
Got it. Any other miscellaneous for this evening? All right, we need a motion to go into closed session to discuss the consideration of an attorney-client privileged opinion letter. Is there such a motion?
I will make that motion to go
Ms.
into
Trent,
closed session.
support. Roger Knapp, roll call vote for this, please.
Tony Kirsten,
Here.
Tony LaPuma,
Yeah.
Bob Bloomingdale,
Yes.
Lisa Germani Williams.
Yes.
Roger Knapp,
Yes.
Marilyn Trent,
Yes.
Paul Haig,
Yes.
Mayor Bixson,
Yes.
Chairman Giovanelli.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, very good. So we will take 5 minutes to use the loo and then regroup for our closed session. Thank you.